All right, we're live for this week's Panther-Lair Show on Wednesday night, November 3rd, 2021. Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. Hanging out tonight, we got a lot to discuss on this week's show. I almost want to give it a minute just to let people kind of roll in and get settled, get their cold ones, whatever it is that they're having during the show tonight. I want to tell you real quick that you definitely need to check out the Kenny Pickett show this week. We release that on Wednesdays. I think it's always like fresh in my mind when we sit down here during the live stream, because we release it Wednesday morning. I usually tape it earlier in the week, Mondays or Tuesdays. We taped this week's episode on Tuesday night, and so it's really fresh in my mind. It was just it was like less than 24 hours ago. I was sitting in in this exact location talking to Kenny Pickett. But this week's Kenny Pickett show, I think, is outstanding. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, I highly recommend it. You know, we covered a lot of ground. And I asked him to break down 4 plays for us, and I told him it was good and the bad. They're too good and too bad, and you pick which one you want first. He said I chose. But anyway, we went through the interceptions, the 2 interceptions, and what he saw on those plays and why he made those throws and kind of how those passes got away from him. And it was funny because he talked about that first interception, the throw to Taysier Mack, where everybody else, myself included, and I even said it to him in the question, said, sure looked like you had Jordan Addison down the middle for a would-be touchdown. And he even, he kind of not so jokingly actually, said, I know everybody thinks I should have thrown it to Jordan, but there was a reason for going to Taysier on that play and this and that, and it was the right thing to do, and it was just you have to go by your rules and what you're supposed to do in each situation depending on what the defense does. It was just he needed to make a better throw is what he said. He said the play was there to be made. They made the play earlier in the game. Just need to make a better throw. And I thought that was a really interesting explanation, and I'm not doing it justice in my paraphrasing of what he said. So you have to check that out. And then he broke down that second interception too, the one on a pass to Jordan Addison that was near the end zone for a touchdown, would-be touchdown. It looked like a pretty easy touchdown, and he broke that down, and it was pretty interesting to hear that as well. But then we also broke down his touchdowns, and 2 of the touchdowns, not all 3. I mean, the one check down to Izzy Abanikanda, and really Abanikanda makes that play happen as far as getting down the sideline and being a playmaker with the ball in his hands for a 20-yard touchdown. But the 2 I asked him to break down were the throws to Jared Wayne and Jalen Barton. And that stuff was really, really interesting. You got to check that out. And, of course, we talked about how you bounce back from the loss to Miami. We talked about a lot of different things. And just kind of coming out of that game. And then we got into some questions from the fans, and there was some really interesting stuff about how he works on arm velocity and also kind of what he's looking for pre-snap. And he doesn't want to give away too much in terms of what they're reading, but I thought Kenny went pretty in-depth on what it's like for a quarterback, when you step up to the line, what you're looking at, what you see, and what it means to you. And we talked about identifying the middle linebacker and how important that is, and talked about the things that he sees out of the defense. So this is an extended plug for the Kenny Pickett show, but it's not just because I want you to watch it and drive our metrics and get good numbers on YouTube and all those different. I mean, I want those things for sure. I mean, I'm not completely selfless in this. It's not altruistic. I want our business ventures to succeed, but I also want you to check it out because it's just damn interesting. I mean, it's really interesting stuff and insightful stuff, and I think you'll have you'll know a little bit more about football than you did going in. You'll have a better sense of Kenny Pickett than you did when you went in. And you'll I don't think there's any downside. The only downside is you have to listen to me for another 15 minutes or so, or better part of 15 minutes, because Kenny does a lot of the talking too. So that's if you can get past the host, you'll really, really like the Kenny Pickett show. So it's on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We release the audio podcast too. So if you subscribe to the Panther-Lair Show podcast, you get that in your feed. We've got it on the front page there at Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com. It's all over the place, and I just can't recommend it enough. I really think you need to check out the Kenny Pickett show. We got 13 episodes so far. Going to keep going through the rest of the regular season. Maybe have 1 or 2 in December around bowl time, and go from there. But and see kind of what comes next. But it's been a lot of fun, and it's been really interesting. And it's just been interesting to get that kind of insight into Kenny, insight from Kenny. It's been really it's been cool, really cool. And Andrew Callahan has a comment. He says, great job with the Kenny Pickett show. It's great to get his honest perspective. You can tell he's more relaxed with you than other media opportunities. And I'll say this, and this is the last thing I'll say before we kind of move on to the business of the day. When we started the Kenny Pickett show back in August, look, I've been interviewing Kenny for more than 5 years. I've been interviewing him since he was a high school kid in really the spring of 2016. He was finishing up his junior year of high school. I've been interviewing him since then. I've probably interviewed, I don't even know, several dozen times since then. Post games, practice interviews, midweek media opportunities, recruiting interviews, all those different things. I've interviewed him. And he has always been he's always known how to handle the media. Not really say anything, quick, short answers, not really digging into anything. And that's not a slight on Kenny. It's just how he chooses to approach his media opportunities. And that's fine. And I think a lot of kids these days have that approach because they've been raised watching, post-game interviews with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, where these guys don't really say anything. And that's the path that kids want to follow. And I think their coaches encourage that. They like it when kids don't really say much. And so when we went into this show, this Kenny Pickett show, I kind of wondered, what are we really going to get out of this? I mean, I hope Kenny is comfortable. I hope he's relaxed. I think I hope he opens up. I hope he gives us insight. I mean, the whole idea here is we want to document this final season of Kenny Pickett, his college career at Pitt. And it would be tough to do that if you just get sort of standard, cliche, short answers. And we get those every now and then. If I ask a stupid question, Kenny, gives me the appropriate kind of cliched short answer. But I was hoping we would avoid that for the most part. And I think we have. I think Kenny's been really good and shared a lot of insight. Like Andrew said, more than I think you get from normal interviews. And the truth is, he's not doing weekly interviews. You know what I mean? He's talking once every other week or so. As far as, gathering with the local media or a national thing or this or that. But he's doing the Kenny Pickett show every week. And we've done the Kenny Pickett show every week since the beginning of training camp, except for the off week. But we've gone week to week. And so, I mean, if you want to hear from Kenny Pickett every week about what's going on with Pitt football, this is the place to do it. Kenny Pickett show. So, and there he is. I always point the wrong direction. We got Kenny Pickett on the screen right there. Is that perfect timing or what? We got a picture of Kenny Pickett coming up right there off the bat. That just worked out perfectly. But, we get together every Wednesday night for our live stream here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And the great thing about this is we can have conversation, right? Comments, questions. We go back and forth. You can post some comments in the in the live chat, and we try and get to as many as we can. But if you want to make sure we read your comment or answer your question or your response, you can always be a super chatter. You click that little $sign down at the bottom, give a couple bucks to the podcast, support us. We appreciate that. And we'll definitely make sure we get to your comment or your question. And RJC Man 38, I don't even know if we had just barely gotten started on the podcast when he already jumped in as a super chatter. He says, Mark Whipple has not broken the top 100 offenses. I guess in his time at Pitt or UMass during the summer, I made it clear with the schedule and Kenny Pickett, you expected a top 10 offense. Never thought Mark Whipple would not know how to game plan. I don't know what your point is you're making. I think he's got a top 5 passing offense, and up until this last week, their 3 previous ACC games, they had been fairly dominant with the running game in the fourth quarter, which we talked about a lot. And that was really the thing that Mark Whipple hadn't been able to do, is establish a running game. And we can talk about this too from the Miami game. Maybe one of the less heralded storylines, and it's not really one that I'm not sure how it would have affected the outcome of the game, or if it would have impacted the outcome of the game. But the just refusal to run the ball. And I know they were trailing. I know they were down 21-17. I know they were down by 2 touchdowns at various points. But at no point were they in such a position where they had to abandon the run, where they were down by so much that they just had to just throw it every play to come back. Now, Kenny Pickett's their best player. The passing game is their best weapon. But the truth is, you had 3 running backs combined for 13 handoffs. 13 carries for the running backs in that Miami game. And those 3 guys, Vincent Davis, Izzy Abanikanda, Rodney Hammond, averaged like 6 yards a carry. They weren't running poorly. And yet, out of 13 drives, Pitt had 13 possessions. There were only 2 where a running back got more than one handoff on the drive. They had one drive where they had 4 carries for 47 yards. Now that drive ended with a field goal from the 5 because they had first and goal at the 5 and threw the ball 3 times incomplete. You've got 3 running backs averaging a combined 6 yards per carry. Earlier on the drive, you have Abanikanda runs for 19 yards. You have a sack that sets up like 2nd and 23, so Vincent Davis runs for 26 yards. And yet, you get first and goal at the 5 and don't hand it off once. And we could talk about the Pitt special. We could talk about second down where they throw a pass to Izzy Abanikanda. But I have to believe, with the way your running backs not only were running in this game, but how they were running in the previous 3 games, particularly in the fourth quarter of those 3 games, that when you line up with first and goal at the 5, if you hand it off on first down, you're going to get at least 2 yards. Who knows? Maybe you'll block it perfectly and you'll get just the right call against their defense. You'll run for a touchdown. I think you'll get a yard or 2. I would say by the time you get to third and goal, you're going to be around the 2-yard line. And then you got you got worlds of options. You can throw another pass to Daniel Carter if you want. You can run the option that they ran. Where do they run that? At Virginia Tech or Georgia Tech, one of those where they ran like a read option play and Kenny Pickett runs in for the touchdown. You could quarterback sneak it 2 times. You got all kinds of options to not even attempt a handoff. To first and goal, you try and run the same play you ran on fourth down the previous snap. That doesn't work. It's incomplete. Second and goal, you try and throw like a fade to your running back. That's incomplete. Third and goal, they run like that Pitt special play. Lucas Krull doesn't really realize he could just run in for the touchdown at that point. It seems to me, and I get hesitant about questioning play calling. There's 22 factors that affect whether a play was good or bad, right? With every guy on the field sort of impacts the outcome of the play, the result of the play. And that affects whether we think it was a good play. If the Pitt special play works, hey, that was great, brilliant. And so I'm always kind of hesitant about that. But in this game where your running backs were having success, to only hand it off to them 13 times, I don't know. And again, I don't want to take the ball out of Kenny Pickett's hands any more than you have to. But I think you could, with some of the pressure that Miami was getting on Kenny Pickett, you probably could have taken some of that pressure off if you established the running game a little bit. And it seemed like your backs were running well enough that you would have had a real chance to do just that. All right, we got more to talk about with that Miami game. Got more to talk about going into this game at Duke on Saturday. But first, I want to get to a couple headlines for the week. All right, because there were some notable headlines, and I feel like we need to hit a few of these news items kind of like right off the bat, just to get started with things. Number one, and this came out on Tuesday, which I guess was yesterday, Nike Sibande. This is on the basketball front, because Pitt basketball is about to open their season on Monday against the Citadel, or Tuesday, against the Citadel. They had an exhibition game on Monday night against Gannon. They won that game by 25. There are a lot of different things you can talk about with that game, but about 10 minutes in, Nike Sibande limped off to the locker room. He was not seen again, and Pitt announced the next day, which was yesterday, that he's out for the season with a torn ACL. And this is obviously a blow. I don't know. It's stating the obvious to say that it was a blow. Last year, he averaged 7 points, 3 rebounds, 1.5 assists per game, shot 42% from the floor, 44% from 3. But he started 6 of the final 7 games, and in those 6 games that he started, and actually, he started 6 out of 7 games. He didn't play in the other game in that final 7. So in those 6 games he started and played in in that stretch at the end of the season, he averaged 13 points, 5.3 rebounds, 2.5 assists, shot better than 46% from the floor and from 3. And he was expected to be, a key piece of this offense, of this basketball team this year. And one of the questions that we've all sort of tossed around a lot this offseason is, who's going to be the man for Pitt basketball this year? Who's going to be the leading scorer even? Something as basic as that. Not just who's going to be the big draw, who's going to be the star or anything like that. Just who's going to be the leading scorer? And it's a question we still have, but Nike Sibande was one of the names that was potentially in the running there. I think most people sort of feel Femi Odikale is going to be the guy. That's sort of my feeling. but it probably won't be by much, and my expectation was Sibande would be right behind him in scoring. As a prominent player who logged 30-plus minutes, 35-plus minutes every night between the 2 and the 3. On Monday night in the exhibition game, he started at the 3. Pitt started with 3 guards, Odikale, Ethiel Horton, and Sibande. And he moved a little bit, and he played the 2 a little bit. And that was what I expected. I thought you would see Odikale, Horton, and Sibande get all the and Jamarius Burton get all the minutes at the 1 and the 2. And then Sibande would split minutes with the 2 and the 3 and play a ton. And then like Will Jeffers would get most of the rest of the minutes at the 3. And I thought that would be sort of your perimeter backcourt wing, perimeter wing rotation would be those. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Odikale, Burton, mostly handling all the point guard duties. Horton and Sibande handling all the 2 guard duties. And then Sibande and Jeffers handling the 3, the small forward duties. Now you take Sibande out of the mix. And obviously that tightens it all up. Now you're looking at Horton or Odikale and Burton as your point guards, but then you really don't have another 2. So Burton's probably going to have to play some shooting guard, mix in with Ethiel Horton, who's going to have to play a ton, who played really well on Monday night. I will say, I think Ethiel Horton was one of the more impressive players. I mean, obviously, Mo Gee, the big transfer from Stony Brook, knocking down a couple threes, blocking 4 shots, getting 3 steals and all this stuff. I mean, he had a really good game, double-double against a D2, I think, Gannon team. I think that's what Gannon is, a D2 team. But Ethiel Horton, I think, really impressed me. He played really well. Well, he's going to have to play well because he's going to get 38 minutes a night or something like that. And then Will Jeffers will be getting a lot of the time at the 3. The guy who's really going to see more minutes, especially now, with Jamarius Burton still out for probably a couple more weeks, and Sibande out for the season, it's going to be Nate Santos, the freshman. Now, Santos came in the first half before Sibande got hurt and logged some minutes at the 3, and that seemed like a natural spot for him. But if you take Sibande out, and you've already got Burton out now for at least a little while, you're going to need Santos to get some minutes at the 2. And he's not going to be the primary minute getter at the 2. He's not going to play more minutes than Horton or anything like that unless there's like foul trouble or something. But he's going to be the main backup there. And, I mean, you'll see Onyebuchi Ezeakudo come in as well. He was the backup point guard on Monday night in the exhibition game. That's a role Burton will eventually fill, but Ezeakudo had to fill it with Burton out. So he'll kind of work the point. Odikale could potentially play some of the 2, but he's going to need rest every now and then. And so I think Nate Santos is the guy who ends up getting the most minutes out of this injury situation with Nike Sibande. And once Burton comes back, you're able to kind of move things around a little bit, but you're still going to need a backup 2 guard. And I mean, as far as I can tell, I think Santos is it. Santos is your backup 2 for a guy who I didn't expect to get many. I didn't think you would see many minutes for, all season coming into the year, because I thought you would have Odikale and Burton, you'd have Horton and Sibande, and you'd have Jeffers, and that would fill pretty much your 1 through 3. Depending on, unless you wanted to switch up the lineup, like go with a different look for your lineup. But that would be your main guys at those 3 spots. Now Santos is going to be in that mix and probably playing a lot at the 2 guard. Ultimately, that's kind of the impact on the roster of who gets more minutes. But ultimately, Sibande figured to be one of Pitt's better players. I think the expectation is Odikale will lead this team, lead them in scoring, and just be the team leader. But Sibande was going to be one of the better players, and probably have plenty of nights where he was the best player. It's one less option for Odikale on distribution of guys to set up, and it's one less guy who can score, and that's what Sibande is. And this is a team that's going to be offensively challenged, and they just lost a player who's pretty proficient as a scorer. That's kind of what Nike Sibande does is score. And losing him is a blow. It's a blow to a team that, they're going to win games. If they're going to win games, they're going to win them 70-65, 65-62, 58-57. They're not going to be a great offensive team. They're going to be an offensively challenged team. And I think they've embraced that. Not that they want to be that. I think they continue working to try and get better at offense. But I think they've embraced the idea of winning with defense and rebounding, being physical, And, to some extent, if this team's going to have any kind of success, they're going to need to establish an identity of knocking guys around and going out and beating teams up and really kind of being physical. It's got to be like 2003, at the Peterson Event Center, where other teams are frustrated by how physical you're being with them. I want this team to have foul trouble, because they're being that physical. And I know I'll talk about this more as the basketball season gets going and as it moves on. I know we got football stuff in the headlines over there. Like a guy like John Hughley, I want him to be sort of felt throughout the ACC. Even if they don't win games, make opponents leave feeling like they got knocked around, particularly around the basket. Hughley's got the size to do it. He needs to do it. He didn't do it against Gannon. I expected him to throw his body around more against Gannon, a team that's undersized and shouldn't be able to match up with him, and he didn't. I'll chalk that up to it being his first game back. But that's the kind of thing he has to do, and it has to set a tone for the rest of the team. That's how, if they're going to have any success this season, that's where it's going to come from. But they were always going to be an offensively challenged team. Not a lot of great scorers, and they lost one of their better ones in Nike Sibande. All right, football team lost somebody as well. Wendell Davis, linebacker, leaves the team. Redshirt junior, started 3 games this season, played in all 8, was something like the 8th leading tackler on the team. 8th on the team in tackles. He had 27. He was 5th in tackles for loss with 3.5. He had a sack in the UMass game. He had 6 tackles against Western Michigan, 6 against Virginia Tech. Those were career highs. He played against Miami, didn't start, came off the bench at middle linebacker, played about 5 snaps, and his 5th snap was the 40-yard touchdown run, where it seemed pretty clear that he whiffed on a tackle. That he missed the tackle that potentially could have, kept that to a 3-yard gain instead of a 40. Maybe kept the score a little bit closer than it ended up being at that point in the game. Is there a connection between? So that was his last play in the game. After that, he didn't play again. Is there a connection between that play and him not returning to the game? I mean, do we sit and say that he was benched? I can't say that definitively. I've asked around a little bit. I think it's a probably. Is there a connection between that and him deciding at this point midweek to go into the transfer portal? You sit on the outside and you do the math, and that's what it looks like. I can't say it definitively, though, and I know I'm almost sort of going in the wrong direction by even sort of suggesting it or bringing it up like this. But, I mean, here's what we know. These things happen. Whether they're all connected or not, I can't say it for certain. I think the coaching staff was a little surprised that he decided to do this. I think it came out of nowhere to some extent for those guys. It's particularly at this point in the season. You're 8 games into the season, a team that's seems to have still a very strong shot at some real success this year. And up and leave, you haven't preserved a red shirt, although he already took his red shirt, so that's not really an option. It didn't. I think it caught a lot of people off guard at Pitt. This is something that, it hurts him in a couple different ways to lose Wendell Davis. The first and most immediate is the depth. Servassier Dennis has been the main starting middle linebacker all season. I think he's gotten the most snaps at middle linebacker in every game that he's played this year. He didn't play the New Hampshire game, and I think Brandon George ended up being the leading snap getter in that game at middle linebacker. But Servassier Dennis made that move inside. And Wendell Davis ended up as his backup, although, like I say, he started 3 games. So it hurts you for depth this year, and then it hurts, or it changes at least the outlook on the starting lineup for next year. John Patrician, Cam Bright, Phil Campbell, they're all going to be done after this year. So Servassier Dennis presumably will move back outside because you're going to have a lot of openings out there, but you're going to need a middle linebacker. And this guy, Wendell Davis, seemed like the ideal option to step in as the starter in 2022. It seemed like the job would be his. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they would keep Dennis there and move in some new guys, Bengali Kamara, or slide Brandon George outside. But or there's Solomon DeShields or somebody at outside linebacker, maybe they would, do that. But it seems to me like the most logical thing is get Dennis back outside and start Wendell Davis, or at least have him compete with Brandon George for that starting middle linebacker job. Well, that option's off the table. So we'll figure that out, a year from now. We'll see what the coaches are able to come up with for their linebacker depth. But, ultimately, I think this kind of just points back to an issue that sort of existed all season, that the linebackers don't seem like they've been as good as we expected them to be. And I'll say it right here. From the start, last summer, last spring, probably last winter, I talked, over and over again about how I thought the linebackers were the strength of the defense, maybe the strongest position group on the team. And I really believed that because I looked at what those guys did last year. I looked at what Cam Bright and Phil Campbell and Servassier Dennis did last year. I said, they've got all those guys back. And they're going to get Wendell Davis back, who missed, the whole season basically with an injury. And they're going to have, Kamara and DeShields coming up, and Patrician's going to, potentially be on the field more, and all this stuff. Like this unit is deep. They're experienced. They're talented. They've got a history of production. This is everything you could want. And I expected them to be, like I say, the strength of the team, or at least the strongest position group on the team. And it hasn't necessarily played out like that. And I don't think they've been as good as they were last year. That's individual to individual, and Dennis is a tough one because you're comparing a guy who played outside last year who's playing a lot of middle linebacker this year. But even a guy like Cam Bright or Phil Campbell, I think you look at production, they don't seem to be in the same, spot that they were last year. And just kind of overall eye test, watching them play, they're not, they just don't look like they're doing as well. And I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that. One reason, and it might be the biggest one, and it might be something that I overlooked in the offseason, something I should have given more, credence to, I guess, is the losses of Patrick Jones and Rashad Weaver. I didn't really think as much about how much those guys impacted the linebackers, how much those guys helped the linebackers, how much those guys opened things up for the linebackers. I didn't think about that as much. I just looked at all the production, I looked at all the returning starts, and I looked at what looked like some really talented linebackers and said, those guys are going to be great. Well, it helps when you have 2 All-American draft picks lining up in front of you at defensive end. You can look at Servassier Dennis's production alone. We have 10 and a half tackles for loss last year or something like that. He was one of the most productive players on the team, maybe the most productive defensive player on the team, aside from Weaver and Jones. Well, it's one thing when you're playing outside linebacker and you've got Weaver and Jones in front of you. And it's another thing when you're playing middle linebacker and you don't have those guys making an impact up there. And I overlooked that in the offseason, or I undervalued it in the offseason. I didn't think about how big of an impact losing those guys would have. And I think that has trickled back to the linebackers. And I know there's a new linebacker coach, and maybe that's it. Maybe he's terrible. Maybe he's great. I don't know. I tend to go on the things I can see, and what I can see is that it doesn't seem like the linebackers are performing as well. And what I can see is that, and what I know is that the defensive ends this year aren't as good, aren't making as big of an impact as the guys did last year. And that can change things. And so that's probably something we need to keep into consideration, or take into consideration when talking about the linebackers this year. And it's something that I'll say it myself. I haven't talked about it enough about what these guys, what they're missing with not having Patrick Jones and Rashad Weaver up front. So that's, my thoughts on that. But best wishes to Wendell Davis. Good luck wherever he ends up. All right, and then the last headline, I want to talk about Pitt ranked number 25 in the college football playoff rankings. And and I'm not going to talk about like Cincinnati or Alabama or where this team's ranked or where that team's ranked. I don't care. It's the first college football playoff poll. There's a lot between now and then. We'll watch how the national storyline plays out. But when it comes to Pitt, I would just say this. Pitt getting ranked in the college football playoff poll, the week after a loss, when they're sitting at 6-2, says to me that the College Football Playoff Committee still thinks this Pitt team is capable of something. If they took the results of the Miami game and said, these guys stink, they're not going anywhere, they're going to lose at least 2 or 3 more games, they're bad. And I shouldn't say the part about losing 2 or 3 more games. I think when the College Football Playoff Committee ranks you number 25, they're saying, all right, we think you are in this group of 25 schools that are the best in the country, 25 teams that are the best in the country. You could very easily drop out of there, but we believe in you enough, even though you just lost, we believe in you enough that we're keeping you in this group for now, or we're putting you in this group for now, and we're going to give you the opportunity to climb if you can show us that what happened last week is just, a series of unfortunate plays, as opposed to a larger statement about who you are as a team. That's kind of what I take from Pitt being ranked number 25 right now. I think it's the playoff committee, and they're probably not putting this much thought into Pitt, but I am. It's the playoff committee saying, we're going to leave the door open for you. They're being the playoff committee, by ranking Pitt number 25, is being Tom Bodett. You guys know Tom Bodett? Are you old enough to know Tom Bodett from Motel 6? We'll leave the light on for you. The College Football Playoff Committee left the light on for Pitt. That's what it is. It is. They're leaving the door open for him. They're leaving the door open for them. All right. Let's get back into some conversations, and as it relates to that Miami game, like I said, I take that that ranking as being the playoff committee saying, Pitt, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt for now that Miami game was just a couple of plays that didn't go your way, but overall we think you're better than that and you can bounce back from it. And I really, as I've thought back on that game in the last today's Wednesday. Last 4 days, 5 days. I mean, you give up the first touchdown with a long pass. You give the second touchdown on a flea flicker, trick play. You give up the third touchdown on a missed tackle on a run that should have been stopped for 3 yards, and instead it goes for 40. And that's all in the first quarter. They have, I did the math on this. First 3 drives, Miami ran 10 plays and got 205 yards. They averaged 20.5 yards per play on their first 10 plays. Their other 61 plays in the game, they averaged less than 5 yards per play. Miami didn't dominate Pitt. They didn't go up and down the field on Pitt. They hit on a couple quick strike plays in the very, very beginning of the game. They were unable to do that again throughout the game, with a few exceptions here and there. And then it was countered, it was sort of, or aided, by some really untimely mistakes by Pitt's offense. Mistakes that Pitt's offense has not been making this season. And that's not an exaggeration. Kenny Pickett, he had 1 interception all season. There was 2 against Miami. And they're both, Kenny owned it. Interception on the pass to Taysier Mack, he needed to make a better throw. He made that throw earlier in the game and knew the throw he had to make. And he had a bad throw. The second interception is a case where, Addison reads it one way and Pickett reads it another. And they're just not synced up the way they need to be synced up. Both of those plays, the second one absolutely was going to be a touchdown. If they're on the same page, it's a touchdown. The first one, Taysier Mack's not going to score there. Jordan Addison possibly could have, but it keeps the drive alive and they could have kept marching in. Either one of those picks, just take one away. You don't have to take both. You don't have to say, if Kenny Pickett just plays a perfect game. No, he can still make a mistake. But if you just take one interception away, Pitt wins that game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. They win that game. They came out of halftime and seized momentum. You get 3 and out, you punt, you get a big return, you score, you get another punt, you score again. They were to tie the game, and they end up giving up a touchdown on the next drive to Miami with a bunch of screen passes and missed tackles. Miami didn't dominate that game. All right, they took advantage of some Pitt mistakes, and then were able to hold on for dear life at the end. I think I said after the game, on the post-game show, the Panther-Lair post-game, that I didn't come out of that game with too different of opinion about Pitt than I had going into it. I mostly thought the same thing about Pitt and who they were and their potential for winning, the things that they could, the things that could cost them a win and the things that could help them win. I don't think they changed at all. And if you have a bunch of missed tackles and you blow it on a trick play and you throw 2 interceptions, you're going to have a hard time winning. Clean up your missed tackles, get a little more sound in your assignments, and Kenny Pickett go back to doing what he's been doing for the first 7 games of the season, and they're going to win. I feel pretty confident in their chances of winning. And so when they go down to Duke on Saturday, when they play North Carolina next Thursday, and they get Virginia and Syracuse after that, those are the keys. It's just don't miss tackles. Don't throw interceptions. I mean, really, these aren't super complicated things, and we can talk until we're blue in the face about the scheme, and we can talk about this and that, and all the play calls and all these different things. If you have your hands on a ball carrier, tackle him. Don't throw interceptions. I mean, I don't mean to be overly simplistic. There are a lot of things that could change the course of a game, and a lot of factors do impact a game. But that's really just kind of what it comes down to. And I'm willing to put my faith. I'm willing to bet on Kenny Pickett not throwing 2 interceptions in a game the rest of the season. I don't know how he'll. I would say he probably will throw another interception or 2 at some point over the final 4 games of the regular season. I don't think he'll have another 2-pick game. And as long as he doesn't, they're going to have a pretty good chance. I haven't really changed my thoughts on this team. Let's see. We got Michael B. as a super chatter. He's one of our regular super chatters, and we appreciate it. Says, hi, Chris. I don't know if you already touched on this, but I'm feeling really down about the basketball team. How many ACC games do you think they realistically can win? And if we finish in last, do you think Capel will be back? This is tough, man. I don't like. We're trying to do some preseason, some Pitt basketball preview content on Panther-Lair.com, and we have to do a record prediction. I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to come up with a prediction for this team because I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to score. I don't know how they're going to be able to score. And you just took away. I mean, Nike Sibande is not a great offensive weapon, but that's not. I mean, he was still going to be one of their better scorers, and now he's gone. This is, I don't know. I can't make a prediction on it. Not right now. I have to think about it more. I mean, to be honest, and I don't mean to dodge the question, but I'm going to have to keep, I haven't made my season prediction yet, so I don't know what to expect from this team. I'm sorry I can't answer it, but I have to look at the schedule and kind of go game by game and sort of guess that way because I don't know what to say. I don't know. It doesn't look good. All right, let's get to some comments and questions in the live chat. Of course, you want to tune in on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com if you want to watch the live stream every Wednesday night at 8:30. We go live after every football game for a Panther-Lair post game. And the cool thing about all this is you can put your comments and questions in the chat and get in on the conversation. You want to respond to something I said, tell me I'm an idiot, or tell me I'm a genius, either one, that works. Or if you have a question about something, you can ask it, and we'll talk about it. I also have to mention really quickly, just because I haven't yet, I got my Hawaii Rainbow Warriors sweatshirt on. This is from Home Field. I got the Pitt shirt on underneath, but it was a little chilly today, so I had to put the sweatshirt on. Home Field, high quality T-shirts and sweatshirts. I mean, seriously, look at this logo. Look at this Hawaii logo. I mean, is that not sweet? That is sweet. I'm going to the wrong side. There we go. You see that? That is a good, high-quality sweatshirt. I've been wearing this thing. I wear this thing all the time. I wash it all the time, and it doesn't lose its shape. It's perfect. It's perfect. The designs are great, and the sweatshirt is great. And they got a lot of great Pitt designs. Go to homefieldapparel.com. If you're a first-time shopper, use the promo code LAIR, L-A-I-R. All right, go do that. You'll get 15% off your order. What a deal. Great shirts, great sweatshirts, 15% off. Homefieldapparel.com. All right. Questions here. Ryan Graham says, time to right the ship against Duke and set up a big UNC Thursday night ESPN game. Yeah, this Duke game, I mean, no disrespect to Duke, but this absolutely should be the kind of game that Pitt goes down there and just thumps them. I mean, just thumps them. And there's no reason Pitt shouldn't win this game comfortably. I think the last I saw, they were favored by I saw early in the week they were favored by 20. I don't know what the line is up to now, but Pitt should cover that. I mean, I am setting the expectation there. I think, and I know they've had close games against Duke. In the 2019 game, they did Malik Carter at the very end to pull out the win there. 2018, they had a late touchdown pass. That team that all they could do was run. They won on a late touchdown pass from Pickett to Maurice French. 2017 was the game when Darren Hall ran for 200 and some yards. They still only won. I mean, it was only a touchdown game. You got to go back to 2016 when they won by about 45 or so. And I think 2015, there was a 30-13 game or something like that. So, first couple years of Pat Narduzzi, pretty convincing wins. The last three, all, basically a touchdown or less. I know the game in 2018 ended up being a 9-point game, but it's because Pitt got a safety on Daniel Jones really at the end of the game to make it 54-45. Otherwise, that was a touchdown game as well. So these games have been close, but with this year's offense, with the way Duke looks this year, Pitt needs to go down there and take out their aggression on Duke. And I don't mind saying that. And, the players and coaches obviously have to take Duke very seriously. They should not overlook any opponent, and I agree with that. I think they should go down there, take Duke very seriously, and beat them. Beat them really good and pummel them. And then come back, like you said, stay healthy, come back and get ready for Carolina on a Thursday night, which is a huge, huge game. Brock McDonald says, what do you think of Wendell Davis moving on during a big run for this team? Also, the defense has struggled during the 2 losses on our record. Something has to change there. Lastly, sad to see Nike Sibande go down. Was expecting a big season from him after how he finished last season. Yeah, I'm as far as the defense changing, I talked about a couple of the other things there, Brock. I know you asked your question before I talked about those things, but as far as the defense changing, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm not smart enough to tell you what they're doing on defense, what they need to change on defense, what they could do better. I can tell you simple things like if you have the ball carrier in arm's reach or you have hands on the ball carrier, you need to bring him down. Period, point blank. All right, missed tackles can happen. Pro Football Focus, I think, had Pitt with 13 missed tackles. Other, different places have said different things. But you have to make the tackle. You just have to. And if you do that, a lot of things can be covered up. I think this defense puts you in a position to make a play. So you got to make a play. You got to make a play. Kyle Peterson says, if you had told me preseason that Pitt would be leading the Coastal at 6-2 with an ACC title in their sights, I don't know if I would have believed it. They've surpassed a lot of expectations already. Well, the hard thing about that, Kyle, and I agree, and there's been different scenarios, what if Pitt goes 3-1 in this stretch and they finish the season 9-3? Maybe they win the Coastal, maybe they don't, but they're right there in the mix to the end. Isn't that what everybody said, in August, that they would be happy with that kind of a result? And it's true. You know what I mean? It's true. I think I predicted 9-3 for this team, and a lot of people said, "Oh, if they win 9 games, I'll be thrilled." But the problem is, and we always say moving the goalposts, and we talk about that as a negative thing, and sort of a fallacy in terms of argument or in terms of logic and all that kind of thing. But the truth is, expectations and goals and the measurement of success, those things change over the course of a season. It's one thing to say, boy, if we could win 9 games, that would be great. But then you start off 6-1, and you're ranked in the top 20, and you beat Clemson, and you got 2 ACC wins on the road. The expectations change at that point. You beat an SEC team on the road. The expectations change. It's no longer good enough to just go 9-3, and that doesn't mean you have to go 10-2. But you do need to win the Coastal Division. You get a 3-0 start in the ACC. You need to hold on to that. The other teams in the division have lost a bunch of games. You need to hold on to that. The expectations change over the course of the season. And what, kind of counts as success, that measure gets adjusted as the year goes on. And that's happened for Pitt. And I think that's natural, and it's what should happen. I mean, they should be setting their goals high. The goal shouldn't be just to win 9 games it shouldn't even be just to win the Coastal. The goal should be for this Pitt team to win the ACC championship. And that's a reflection on what they've done to this point, and it's a reflection on what the rest of the conference is doing. I mean, if you sit here, I think, yes, I'm willing to say that anything short of an ACC, certainly anything short of the Coastal Division title will be a disappointment at this point. And I wouldn't have said that preseason. I wouldn't have said in August that anything short of the Coastal is a disappointment. But I'll say it right now because of where they've positioned themselves and where the rest of the conference is, where the rest of the division is. And I'm close to saying if they, anything short of winning the ACC would be a disappointment. Not quite there yet. I mean, I think you get to that championship game. It's a one-game situation. Anything can happen, and it's an accomplishment just to get there. But I would definitely say at this point, anything short of the Coastal is a disappointment. Let's see here. Sam Snyder says Kenny Pickett has played as perfect as a quarterback could play so far this year. I'm really impressed with him. Yeah, he's been playing he's been playing at a high level. You know what I mean? And it's been fun to watch. It's fun to watch him because there were frustrating moments in the past couple years. Moments where you said, is this guy really going to take that step to the next level? And he has. And he looks comfortable on the field. He's making great throws. He's making great reads. He had two bad mistakes. He had two bad mistakes in that Miami game, and it cost them. And he knows that, and I bet he probably worked even harder this week because of it. Chris Gates Fitness says, Chris, what's your confidence level Pitt's defense can tackle better, shore up the weaknesses the rest of the way? P.S. I bet pro scouts listen to your shows with Kenny. He showcases his smarts. Hey, I mean, that's part of the I think part of the appeal for Kenny with the Kenny Pickett show is getting a chance to kind of showcase who he is, in that kind of setting. And so hopefully, I hope scouts are watching the show or listening to the show. That'd be awesome. As far as my confidence level, the Pitt's defense can tackle better and shore up the weaknesses. I think tackling was a problem after the Western Michigan game. And I remember after the Western Michigan game, I sat here, I said, look, there were two issues with this defense. There were two things that went wrong with the defense in that game. One, they had coverage breakdowns and busts. And two, it was poor tackling. And I said those two things can both be corrected. You can get better at tackling. You can focus on those fundamentals and take care of those things. And then you can clean up the coverage busts. And I think for the most part, over the next, how many games? 1, 2, 3, 4 games, I think they did that. I think they were better. I think they got things. I think they got a little bit tighter in their coverage. Not perfect, certainly. I mean, you saw guys at Georgia Tech open. You saw some opportunities at Virginia Tech, but the wind messed with them. And you saw some opportunities for Clemson to hit some passes, and they missed them. But I think their coverage was better in those 4 games, and I think their tackling was better in those 4 games. They need to come out of this week of practice with just as much, with some improvement in the tackling. Obviously there's always going to be coverage things that they need to clean up. But I think the tackling is something that just has to be emphasized. And there's only a couple days in the week where they actually do hit. They don't hit every day. They don't have live practices every day. And so maybe there's only so much you can improve during the season. Maybe it's just a matter of focus. And then there are different things like you'll have to check out. We have a film review on Panther-Lair.com. Our guy Josh Hammock breaks down the defense and offense each week and previews the next opponent and everything. And he broke down some of the film of some of those bubble screens that Miami was hitting. And yeah, I mean, we all watched them. It was really frustrating because it looked like they had an opportunity for a tackle. But there were a bunch of situations where guys were just going at it wrong, where the safety and the linebacker have to sort of be on the same page and know how they're going to play it. Okay, if the tight end blocks this way, the linebacker is going to do this, and that means the safety has to do that. But if the tight end blocks that way, the linebacker is going to do this, and the safety has to do that. And there has to be sort of a common understanding there. They have to understand their jobs. Do your job. And how often does Pat Narduzzi talk about that? You just do your job. Don't try and do somebody else's job. Just do your job and trust everyone else around you to do their jobs. And I think they probably got away from that a little bit. And that is the kind of thing that you can go over in film, you can go over in your position meetings, you can go over in your team meetings, and you can certainly go over it on the practice field, where it's not even as much about the fundamentals of how to wrap up and how to bring down, but it's about, this is your job. Do your job. And that guy over there, trust that he's going to do his job, because he's trusting that you'll do yours. So if you both do your jobs, we make these plays. And I think that's probably a lot of what the emphasis is this week, is what it should be. It's what it should be. And so I think they can tighten some of those things up. It's not going to be perfect. I don't think it ever will be, but I think they can tighten some of those things up. All right. Sports World PA says Duke's a good game to get back on track and get ready for North Carolina. I think that's going to be a tough game. Yeah, I mean, North Carolina is going to be a real challenge. They're going to, they throw the ball all over the place. They have a really good quarterback. They have the kind of offense that can take advantage of this defense, sort of schematically. They know how to attack it, and they can do a good job against it. I just look at it, and I think North Carolina's defense is a real bust, and I think their offensive line is shaky too. And it could be the kind of game where Pitt's pass rush gets to Sam Howell, makes him uncomfortable, forces a few mistakes, and makes it so that Sam Howell can't keep up with Kenny Pickett and Pitt's offense. That's my early thought on the North Carolina game, but that's a week away. Got to get through the Duke game here first, and like I said, I agree with you. I think Duke is a good game to kind of bounce back, get everything sort of locked up, remember what it's like when you're doing things right, remember what it feels like, and then get ready for Carolina after that. PGH says, I would like to see Rodney Hammond get more carries. I was saying this earlier. I mean, 3 running backs get a combined total of 13 handoffs in that game against Miami. I would like to see all the running backs get more carries. I think Vincent Davis has things he can do well to help this offense. I think Izzy Abanikanda is a playmaker. I think Rodney Hammond, I mean, shoot, man, you had Dion Lewis as the honorary captain. Rodney Hammond is like Dion Lewis 2.0. And you don't give him more than, what did he even have? He only had like 1 carry, I think, in that game. I had my stat sheet down here, I thought. It doesn't matter. I mean, you guys know. Here it is. Oh, that's a Clemson one. Who cares? There's a giant mess of papers over here. Rodney Hammond he didn't get enough work. You know what I mean? He didn't get enough work. I think he might have only had 1 carry. All those guys. I mean, you need to do more. Kenny Pickett's your best player. The passing game's your best attack on offense. You have things you can do with the running game, and it can help open up the offense. Run a little more play action, because your running game is a threat. Okay, but you got to establish the running game. All right, let's see here. There's a lot of conversations going back and forth here. Guys arguing about the offense, arguing about the defense. Let's see here. Eden Sowers says, if the Coastal Division comes down to the Virginia game, Panther-Lair needs to host a tailgate. I mean, that would be a lot of fun. We thought about doing different things like that. The problem is, particularly for a home game, I mean, I'm like working. Like you guys, these games are like a lot of fun. And I mean, I'm not complaining about my, having to work at a football game. But, for you guys, like you hang out outside, you drink and get ready, go into the game, eat hot dogs. I mean, it's a fun time. I love tailgating. It's a blast. But for me, I kind of walk through the parking lots before the game and see all the tailgates. And I'm like, oh, that'd be fun, but got to go to work, And so, I'm usually inside the stadium a couple hours before the game starts. So I don't think I could really do a very good job hosting a tailgate. We had a few back in 2016. We had a few game watches at Kane's Saloon in Mount Lebanon, or Dormont. I forget which side of the line it's on. It's not even Kane's anymore. But that was fun. We had a couple up there and got a pretty decent crowd for a couple of them. We had some fun. I think maybe the Oklahoma State game, we had like a really good crowd for that, I think. I think it was that one. But yeah, I mean, we had a lot of fun at those. So maybe we'll try and do things like that again. But, we do the Panther-Lair post game. I guess if everybody came out to a bar and we all sat and drank together for 3 or 4 hours, and then I came back into the post game, you guys could all you would all know where all my ranting came from that day, because you would have been sitting there drinking with me the whole time. All right. Adine Rouse says John Hughley needs to not just be physical, he needs to be better at the line and from the field. Yeah, and I think from the field, part of that is being able to finish. And part of that will come from being physical. He needs to physically go up and grab offensive rebounds and make the other guy who's trying to get the rebound, make it hurt, so that guy backs off a little bit and gives you room to finish. He needs to improve his body control. He needs to improve his athleticism. Probably needs to get his weight down a little bit. I mean, he could be pretty. I think he could be a pretty good player. I think he could be a really good player. With his build, but it's just not there yet. Now, he hasn't played a game in like 312 days or something like that. It's been a long time since his last game. And so it's going to take a little while for him to get his sea legs under him, for lack of a better term. But he's going to have to play well. I think it's going to be important, and I think he can set a tone for this team that they don't really have. He can do things that they don't really have. He can do things they don't really have anybody else built like him. Like Mo Gee can block shots because he's long and he's athletic, he's big out there. But having having Hughley banging around under the basket could be huge for this team. I don't think there's any question. It could be huge. All right, let's see here. We're almost out of time. Talk is Pitt says we need to demolish Duke the way we did New Hampshire. I think that's true. I mean, I think I don't know if it's going to be a 77-7, but they were able to beat Georgia Tech 52-22 or whatever it was, 52-21 or something like that. I mean, you do need to have that kind of game against Duke. I think that's the kind of game that Pitt needs to put up this weekend against the Blue Devils. They need to go down, throw the ball a lot, and run the ball really well. They need to pile up points and yards, and then just play really lockdown defense. Duke is not good. They're winless in the ACC. You need to not just win, but win convincingly and start building some positive momentum again to come back for this Carolina game on a short turnaround. Make sure you go to homefieldapparel.com. Homefield Apparel. Get these sweet. I got the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors sweatshirt. Underneath, I've got the Pitt warm-up, the Victory Lights yellow t-shirt. Is awesome. It's soft. It's comfortable. It's a great design. It's a it's the best t-shirts and sweatshirts that I have. I mean, there's no. I don't mean to dabble in hyperbole, but it's the truth. These are the best. And if you go to homefieldapparel.com, if you're a first-time shopper there, use the promo code LAIR, LAIR, and you can get 15% off your order. I mean, some of the best t-shirts and sweatshirts you're going to find for 15% off. Can't beat that deal, right? Make sure you also check out Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Football, basketball, recruiting, you find it all at Panther-Lair.com. And, of course, message boards where you can interact with hundreds and thousands of your closest Pitt fan friends. It's like these conversations we have right here on the Panther-Lair Show every Wednesday night. We do it all day, every day on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. There's a button. Which hand? This one right here, right down there. Okay? There's a button. It says subscribe. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way, when we go live after the Duke game on Saturday for the Panther-Lair post-game show, you will get a notification and you'll know that we're going live. So you can tune in and talk about the game. This is one of our most fun shows that we do. RJ Seaman says the post-game is the best. Awesome content. I think he said something like that. And I absolutely agree. It's a lot of fun. We have a good time on the post-game, so we'd love for you to join us there. Make sure you tune in to 93.7 The Fan on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. We'll have the Panthers Insider Show. More Pitt sports talk. And that's always fun. And yeah, between now and then, make sure you just keep it locked into Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks everybody who came out in the live stream tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks everybody who tuned into the podcast through the week. And, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy these days, cold as they may be, and look forward to the game on Saturday, Pitt at Duke. It's a noon kickoff, right? That'll be an interesting one. Should be a big win for Pitt. We'll see what they're able to do. So we will go live after the game for the Panther-Lair post game. Make sure you subscribe to get notifications on when we do that. Until then, have a great rest of the week. We'll talk to you Saturday afternoon.